7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hello everybody and welcome back to Gays, Lies, Sex, Wives and DM Slides. I'm your host Jed and we are officially back in season 2. Last episode we talked about starting fresh in 2026, new goals, new energy and leaving some things firmly in the past. But today's episode asks a slightly uncomfortable question. Is it really a new year? Or are we still entertaining the same red flags? Because let's be honest, sometimes we say new year, new me, but our dating habits and our boundaries and even the people we keep around us don't always change as quickly as we hope. So today we're talking about patterns, red flags and learning to recognize when something isn't good for you, even if it feels familiar. Let's get into it. Let's start with the gays segment. Dating in the queer world, okay? Dating in queer spaces can be exciting, emotional, and sometimes a little chaotic. So here's a question. Why do we sometimes ignore red flags when we're dating? Sometimes it's loneliness, sometimes it's attraction, and sometimes we just want something so badly to work that we convince ourselves certain behaviours aren't a big deal. But here's the truth. A red flag doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it's subtle. Inconsistent communication, mixed signals, someone only showing up when it suits them. And the longer we ignore those signs, the harder it becomes to walk away later. Segment 2, lies. The stories we tell ourselves. Now let's talk about lies, because when red flags appear, we often create stories to make them seem less serious. So here's a question. What lies do we tell ourselves when someone isn't treating us right? Some classics include they're just busy, they're bad at texting, and maybe they'll change. And while sometimes people really are busy, patterns rarely lie. If someone consistently shows you who they are, believe them. Because ignoring red flags does make them disappear. It just delays the moment you realise you deserve better. Segment 3, Sex Thrives, Choosing Yourself. Now it's time for Sex Thrives, the part where we talk about growth. Here's the big question. What does thriving in relationships actually look like? Thriving means choosing people who bring peace and not confusion. It means relationships that feel stable, respectful and mutual. And it also means learning something really important. Not every connection is meant to last. Some people enter your life just to teach you what you don't want again. And honestly, that lesson is powerful. Segment 4, DM slides when they pop back up. And finally DM slides, because there's always that's one person who reappears out of nowhere. So here's a big question. Why do people come back after disappearing? Sometimes it's boredom, sometimes it's curiosity, and sometimes it's just because they assume you'll still be available. But in 2026, we're doing things differently. We're protecting our peace, we're recognising patterns, and we're not reopening doors that took so much effort to close. So, if you take anything from today's episode, let it be this. Red flags don't become green flags just because we like someone. Your peace, your boundaries, and your self-respect matter more than chasing someone who can't meet you halfway. And before we wrap up today's episode, make sure you follow the podcast on social media. You can find us on Instagram and YouTube at Gays, Lies, Sex Thrives DMs Pod. That's where you'll see updates, a few clips, maybe even from the podcast and coming up episodes. Thank you so much for listening to Gays, Lies, Sex, Wives and DM Slides. I'm your host Jed and I'll see you in the next episode. Goodbye.
Thank